All right, let me ask you something really quick. When the world needs to move trillions of dollars, do you think they're going to use the cheapest tool or the one that can actually scale? Because that right there is where most people get so confused with XRP. Most people think like consumers. They think, oh, cheaper is better, cheaper gas, cheaper food, cheaper restaurants, whatever the case may be. So naturally, they bring the same mindset into the crypto world and they think, oh, XRP is cheap now, it's always going to stay cheap. But banks and institutions, they don't think like that. They don't think like consumers. They don't think like shoppers, they think like engineers. They're not asking how cheap is XRP. The institutions are asking how can it move money efficiently? Can it move billions or even trillions of dollars? Can it stay liquid under pressure? Can it settle instantly? These are the questions that institutions are asking about XRP. It's a completely different ballgame when it comes down to institutions and the retail mindset. Now think about this. If you were to move $1 billion, it's a completely different scenario from a coin that's 50 cents, $50, $500, or even $1,000. At low prices, you need more units, and more units equals more friction. More friction equals more complexity. More complexity equals slower systems. But at higher value, you need fewer units, and that's exactly what XRP can do. For one XRP token, you can actually use about 1 million units. Well, what does that mean for institutions and banks for XRP? It means cleaner, safer, and more scalable transactions. Less balance sheet stress, more efficiency right there for institutions. They like to know that their money is getting from one place to another safely, fast, and actually very cheap. It's XRP has 35-second transaction times for a fraction of a cost fees. That's not hype. That's just straight infrastructure. That is how the system is designed to work. A higher XRP price could actually make the banking system more sufficient. Now zoom out for a second. Look at the current financial system. It's slow, it's insufficient, it's outdated. You got capital sitting idle around the world. You got delayed settlements. Whenever you go to send money, it takes, in some cases, 1 to 3 business days. Whenever you deposit a check, it takes forever. With XRP, it solves it instantly. Basically like an old road system that has been patched together for decades. If you go drive on the parkway or the highway and you see all these potholes, it's an old road. XRP is the bridge. It makes a beautiful, smooth bridge. Now let's put that into perspective. If XRP is a bridge, let's picture a bridge now. A bridge is not judged by how cheap it is. A bridge is judged based on getting one thing to the other side of that bridge safely and efficiently. That is exactly what XRP does, but instead with payments. Now XRP isn't competing with any other crypto coin. XRP is competing with the current financial system. Now here's the thing that a lot of people get wrong here and misunderstand with XRP. They say, oh, if banks truly wanted XRP, then the price of XRP would have exploded by now. That's not true because retail is no longer pushing the price of XRP. What's going to push the price of XRP is billions and even trillions of dollars coming into the market, and there's only one place that can come, and that is with the banks, with the institutions. Retail hype is not going to push the price of XRP no matter what, and this kind of infrastructure starts quiet. It does not build very, very loud. While you see so many people talking about XRP online every single day, the true infrastructure, the true adoption happens behind the scenes underground. Institutions have to do testing, they have to do integrations, they also have to do regulatory clarity, and that's something that the crypto market is actually waiting on. We're waiting on that Clarity Act to come in. And I truly believe that once the Clarity Act is in the picture here in the US, that XRP can have that opportunity to adopt at scale and to really start getting that mass integrations that people have been waiting on for years now for XRP. Look at history, for example. The internet was built way before people actually understood it or even used it. Infrastructure always looks boring right before it's obvious to everyone. Look at Amazon, for example. No one believed Amazon would turn into the mega giant stock they are today when Jeff Bezos was in a little office and selling books online. Now let's talk about something that not a lot of people like to hear, and that's that banks don't care about hype. Banks don't care about moon price predictions. Banks don't care about, what's trending on social media. Banks care about efficiency, reliability, and liquidity. And if a higher value asset such as potentially XRP can actually help and bring those products to the table for these institutions and for these banks, then having a low price XRP just doesn't make any sense. Banks don't want a cheap XRP. Banks want an XRP that scales and works for them, and it's going to work best at a higher price. When systems grow, price per unit grows as well for XRP, which could actually appreciate the price. It becomes harder to move large amounts efficiently if XRP is at a lower price. But if XRP gets repriced and becomes higher and is valued at, let's say, $100, $150, $1,000, $10,000, all those prices that you guys hear, then it actually becomes easier, more more efficient for these institutions to settle all of these transactions. That's why whenever you hear someone say, oh, XRP's price is always going to stay low or it has to stay low, that argument has been debunked many times. These institutions actually need the price to be higher in order to have these transactions work more efficiently. And this is where timing comes into the picture. I think that, full adoption, full integrations with tokenization in the real world actually won't fully take place until 2030, 2035. Right now we're sitting at 2026. I think that this year we're going to see a lot of adoption in the trillions of dollars range. I know that Ripple's predicting like a $33 trillion on-chain volume this year, but I think mass adoption, full adoption is going to be like 2030, 2035. I mean, look, hey, I hope I'm wrong and I hope it's earlier. I think that 2026 could be a pretty positive year when it comes down to adoption, but I think, leading into the next couple of years, 27, 28, 29, the adoption of real world tokenization is only going to increase, but I think that 2030, 2035 is when we'll see like that full blossom effect. But the price of XRP, the price doesn't have to wait for just that. There's something called a repricing. There's a supply shock. There's so many different other factors that can help appreciate the price of XRP before 2030 and 2035. If major players, major banks, major institutions decide that XRP has to be a higher price to, have these transactions settle more efficiently, then hey, they're going to do that. XRP doesn't need the year 2035 to go up. It needs a reprice. So let's bring this all together. A lot of people, arguing about the price of XRP, they're stuck on the supply factor. They're stuck on the market cap. They're stuck on the current price and the short-term price of where things are at today. But the real question they should be asking is, what role does XRP play in the real world infrastructure? How much of XRP's utility can be integrated into the current banking system, and when will that utility be integrated into the banking system? Those are the conversations we should be having instead of just looking at the current price saying, oh, it's $1.40, it's a scam. That's not the mindset these investors should be having. A lot of investors, I understand I'm a retail investor too, but a lot of people are stuck in that retail mindset. You have to start thinking how these institutions think. The institutions are thinking on the long term. A lot of retail investors are too focused on today, and that can really affect their mindset and really affect the emotional standpoint. Institutions are playing chess while retail is playing checkers, and you have to really start tapping into understanding how these institutions think about the long-term picture here. So guys, when trillions of dollars need to move, which believe me, they need to move, they're going to pick, something that is the most scalable and the most safe, the most efficient, the cheapest, the fastest. They're not going to just pick any random coin. They're not going to pick any random system. They're going to pick something that works. And Ripple has been building something called XRP that genuinely works for the banks. So guys, make sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll be posting XRP content for you guys here on YouTube every single day. I'll see you guys in the next one.